let's talk about the holographic eye paint from About Face and the multi-chromatic chrome reflecting eyeshadow from Beaute.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
I wanted to get these and try these out because I think the description and the name of these is very deceiving and not accurate. So I'm just going to pull up on Google what is holographic color. The light is being filtered through like a prism, and different wavelengths are shown depending on the angle the light hits the surface. So that is what holographic is. And then multi-chromatic is involving more than one color, which I think if you're in the indie space, you think multi-chromatic, like multi-chromes, you think actually more like this kind of shade because it does shift from like a teal to purple to blue to green. It has a bunch of shifts in it, so it's shifting. It's multi-chromatic, and the shade I got is called Gleam. And it's basically just like a neutral brownish shade. Pop up a comparison of what I would actually consider a holochrome or a holographic multichrome. The top swatch is a shade from the Ensley Lands of Enchantment palette, and that one is very similar, if not almost the same kind of multichrome, but it has holographic specs in it. And I have a dedicated video on these kinds of holochromes, multichromes, and I kind of talk about the holographic effect and how it really ranges from depending on the kind of pigment and the size of the particle, and if it's evenly dispersed, if it's truly just fully holochrome, when you can see the traveling rainbow. So let's get into the demo application of each of these, and then I'll kind of give you my summed up thoughts on these. So let's get right into it. And I'm just gonna be using my finger to pick up the shade Gleam. Here's what it looks like. Very shiny, very smooth, which I love to see. It does look like it picked up a little bit thick, like there's a little bit of a thicker layer. I'm just gonna tap it on my lid. Definitely a kind of one and done shadow. Visually, it reminds me of the Pat McGrath Chroma Something shadows where they're in the little pots, which I did eye swatches of. So it's got that like very refined shine in a almost satin-like way, but it still glistens and it looks wet without any fallout. Like I will not get any fallout with the shade. I don't know about creasing. I feel like I might get a little bit of creasing because it does have a little bit of like that consistency that I think I might experience creasing with, but it's definitely dimensional because I can really see that beautiful rose gold kind of almost slightly reddish base to it, but it's got a really beautiful sheen on top of that, so it looks very dimensional on the lid. And I almost feel like when I kind of look straight on, I feel like I can see less of the reflect here. So it's kind of doing that thing that some highlighters do on the cheeks where they have that base where the reflect gets lost on the side. So it's really beautiful. It's very dimensional, but this is not a multi-chrome. Obviously, I think we all kind of could have guessed that much, but I wonder if because it says chromatic instead of chrome specifically, that's why they felt like they could describe it this way. But I mean, it's really beautiful. Again, really nice one and done kind of shadow, and it blended out super nicely, and it looks very smooth on the lid. It is not accentuating any skin texture, so very much appreciated. I actually really like this a lot more than I thought I was going to like it, because I've seen some videos of application of this that they have on their Instagram, and I was kind of like, it looks kind of like dry, but I think it looks really nice. This is definitely like a quick throw on type of shade. Really like it, actually. I feel like this shade in certain lighting looks actually very kind of sparkly and dimensional, and I wonder if that's why they named it holographic, because it does have that reflect to it in a very bright light. However, I wouldn't necessarily call it holographic in sense of what I consider personally holographic. You can kind of see it in the bottle a little bit. It's just not holographic in a sense of seeing a rainbow. So I'm just gonna put it on kind of all over the lid. I don't really feel like going in with a matte, but I'm just gonna do like the eyeshadow wing with it. It is unfortunately that kind of formula that does wipe itself as you keep swiping over it, so not a huge fan. Also, they smell, this is such a weird thing, this smells like the Twin Flames, and they also have very similar kind of almost oily texture to them. That being said, it was very hard to take off the back of my hand once it dried down. So here it is. This is just like one coat, and we're gonna, of course, gotta let it dry, especially if you have hooded eyes, because if you don't and you open your eye, it's going to dry with a crease. Here it is dry, and I gotta say is the holo in the room with us? Because I'm definitely not seeing it, and it actually kind of creased as it was drying down. I think I'm going to do another coat because I can kind of see a little bit of patchiness in there. I'm not sure if it's translating on camera, but at this angle I can really see a lot of patchiness like here. And the thing is, usually with liquid types of chrome eyeshadows, once they dry down, they're just not as metallic, which I personally don't love that. So I'm going to do another coat. They definitely look way more metallic when it's still wet. So you won't really get a good idea on how that's going to look until it dries down, because it's definitely going to look different, as you can see. Okay, so second coat, definitely way better. Here it is dry. I can feel it a little bit on my lid, and I feel like you can kind of see it's just scrunching up a little bit, which is very typical for any sort of liquid eyeshadow like this, but it is very opaque. It is definitely more shiny and less dull now that there's a second coat. And it is very shifty. Now let's see if we can see any holo. I definitely see a bit of like a glisten and a little fleck of sparkle. It's very sparkly in a very subtle way. Like, it's really beautiful, but I don't think this is holographic at all. Like, at all. So I did only get one shade. I believe there's 3 or 4 other shades or something like that. I just didn't think it was worth it for me to buy those because I do not reach for liquid eyeshadows like pretty much at all. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not really my preferred way of applying eyeshadow. That being said, this is set really nicely. I put it over the Too Faced Shadow Insurance, and it definitely looks like it has potential to last a really good time. And I believe these are about like $16 or something like that, and Ulta does have sales, and About Face does run sales. I would say probably every kind of few months, so I would definitely wait to get this on sale if you're interested in it, but I definitely prefer my pressed versions of this much more. So my final conclusion is this is not holographic, and I think that they meant to name this multi-chromatic or multi-chrome because it does definitely shift quite a bit. The shift is very noticeable, so I think it's one of those things where I've seen brands call iridescent multi-chromes holographic. Again, not holographic, they're iridescent. Almost see a hint of like a holo, kind of, but really only when it's in here or when you're swatching it and it's still wet in direct light. It does have quite a bit of that sparkle and dimensionality, but once it dries down especially, there is no holo to be seen. Like, I don't see any hint of it whatsoever, especially in comparison to the very similar shade I showed you in the beginning of the video. That is definitely holographic, and you can see that almost immediately when you open the palette in pretty much most lighting, but there's definitely certain lighting that brings out the holographic effect a bit more, especially really bright direct light. But also I find that my kitchen lighting and even my bathroom lighting really captures holographic eyeshadows really well. So onto the Make Beauty eyeshadow. I definitely feel all set with just one shade, especially because it is pretty large. I think that in general, this brand's audience is not me, and it's more for people that will probably only have maybe 5 total eyeshadows. They want something really quick and easy, one and done type of situation. This large pan, and they do gravitate towards this kind of formula where it's not really too sparkly, it's not textured at all, and it's really just easy to use. It looks really nice on the lid. I'm really enjoying this on the lid. Like, I really see myself actually reaching for this a lot. It has a really refined, beautiful glisten to it. Again, it's not multi-chromatic in the sense, what I consider multi-chromatic is there 2 shades in here. Kind of. I would say if anything, this is more like a duochrome. Definitely not a multi-chrome because you can't see 2 very distinct shades shifting in here. It's more of a dimensional type of shade, so I feel like this, if this had been called like dimensional metal reflecting eyeshadow, I think that would be right on par. Proper description of what this kind of shadow has to offer to you. Seems like a really nice formula. I will keep you updated. I will not be wearing this for the rest of the day. I'm not going to be going out grocery shopping like this, but I definitely do plan on wearing it to work just as a one and done shadow, and I'll keep you updated on how it wears because I'm really intrigued. Again, really like the way it looks. Also, it is pretty expensive for what it is, in my opinion, again, and what my gauge is for what is expensive or not and what you're getting for your price. So this is, I think, around $25. I'll put up on the screen if I'm wrong. You are getting 4 grams, so for sure I'm gonna keep that in mind. And also, you can take this pan out and you can buy a new one and refill it. So I think that's definitely nice. It feels nice and sturdy. The top is definitely plastic. The bottom's also actually plastic, but it has a little bit of weight to it. So like, it feels a little bit more luxury, so I understand the price tag. But that being said, I think you can get similar kind of eyeshadows like this for not $25. You know, I think if they sold this in 26mm pans and in like a nicer, smaller compact, and they priced it at like $13, $14 max, I feel like that would be a pretty decent price for that actually. I did want to buy both of these and just try these out for myself, because when I saw the swatches and when I saw the claims, I was just not impressed, and I was like, I need to try this for myself. I need to try it out for you. So let me know in the comments below if you picked either of these kinds of products up and what you think of them. I would love to hear your thoughts. And that's everything for the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time.